Today we're going to replace the screen on a Motorola Razr HD XT926, and here you can see this one is pretty badly beaten. The glass is broken, the LCD is also damaged, but that doesn't really matter because the replacement screens are going to replace the entire front of the phone, lens, digitizer, and LCD. It's all one piece, all sealed at the factory, so you break one of them, you're basically going to replace all three at the same time. The good news is this isn't too difficult of a repair. We've got just a couple of T5 Torx screws at the bottom of the phone, and we will take these out first of all, and then the one tricky part is actually getting the screen off, which you'll see coming up here in the next couple of sections. But first of all, we'll get these two T5 screws removed, and then on the side, of course, we have a SIM ejection tray, and for some reason this thing just doesn't always eject properly. It comes out kind of part ways, and if you have trouble getting it all the way out, you can actually use your pry tool, which you'll see shortly. I'm going to go in here. So I'm not sure why. Sometimes these things pop right out and sometimes they don't like to. It could be some sort of damage on the inside. In any case, if it gets stuck, just take a pry tool and very carefully go along the side, and you should be able to maneuver this out of the housing, and that will remove your LTE card. And then if you happen to have an SD card, that will be located right next to where this tray came out. So make sure you go down and take a look. If you have a card here, this you can actually eject. Just push on it and it will pop right out of the phone. Now, what's supposed to happen next is you slide the entire panel of the front of the phone straight up towards the top, and it should release, although a lot of these can be very stubborn. So what I've noticed, at least for me, works best, and you can see here I'm kind of pushing up on it. If you have a lot of broken glass, you want to be really careful. Don't get your hand cut in the process. But what I've ended up doing in this particular phone is kind of prying down at the bottom. You'll have two tabs on the inside, and once you release those two tabs, just kind of pop them out a little bit, then it'll make this a lot easier just to slide this whole thing up. And once you do that, be very careful in the process, as there are two flex cables connected on the inside. So I'm going to try to get this at an angle so that you can kind of see what I'm working with. But we'll have some tape that goes over these connectors, the FFC connectors on the inside. So make sure you get this heat resistant tape removed first of all, and then we'll want to open up those latches that release the flex cables. And as you can see, this flex cable is already kind of coming out. Don't worry about that too much. But when you go to put the phone back together, you'll notice that it does slip out of position. It's not a real secure mechanism, and the tape doesn't really hold it in place there. So that one is kind of tricky to get it in. And if you put the phone back together and your LCD doesn't turn on, that's probably why, because it slipped out in the process. So not a big deal. You can always go back in and reinsert those. And over here, I'm going to use a proper tool, open up the gate, and then we can pull this other cable out. And you see how that's kind of put together on the inside here. So what we need to do now is just separate this assembly from the metal housing that goes right behind the LCD. And in order to do that, we're going to heat up a couple of cables and feed them through the bottom of the phone, and then you're just going to pry a lot of glass out. So don't worry about these screws at the top. I was actually just kind of checking out how we could remove the earpiece at the time. All you have to worry about is heating up this bottom cable and taking that, just peeling it off of the metal piece there, which you'll see I'm doing here probably more carefully than I need to. This one is damaged. It's definitely going to go in the recycling bin. But just for the sake of practice, we want to try to get this stuff off as cleanly as possible. So once you've pried that big cable apart from the metal, you can actually flip the phone over, and you will want to use some heat. There is adhesive that goes mainly on the top and bottom, a little bit on the edges. And this one is going to be pretty messy because it's broken into so many pieces, but you'll see that between the glass and the plastic frame here, you can kind of pry. This is going to be a little time consuming depending on how bad the damage is to your screen. But you just kind of have to heat this up, take your time, and work your way around. And what we want to do is remove all of the glass and all of the adhesive that's underneath the glass so that we can install the new piece. If you get one little splinter of glass trapped in there and you put pressure on your new screen, it is possible to damage it. So you want to be really careful and make sure you get everything removed from here. You can see I'm prying the top piece apart, and once you lift that away from this assembly, this little metal piece, you can just kind of slide those cables through. And from here, it's just going to be time, patience, and effort of removing the old glass from the frame. So you see, once I've got the majority off, I'm going to continue to use my heat gun. And what I like to do is take a flat object. This is not a sharp razor blade. This razor blade has actually been purposely dulled so that I don't do too much damage to anything while I'm kind of scraping this stuff off. So be really careful, obviously, when you're working with sharp objects. But we want to try to get under not just the glass itself, but also underneath this adhesive that's kind of underneath it. You'll see here. I've got the glass off, but then you've got this other adhesive, and we want to have as clean of a surface as possible before we mount the new lens on so that things don't get loosened up later on down the road. So just go over this. It will take you some time. I'd say probably about 10-15 minutes at the most to clean this up and have it looking like new, which you'll see coming up here shortly. And this is what we want it to look like before we apply the new screen. You can see everything's been removed from the perimeter. And I've actually applied new adhesive to the part that we're going to be installing. Make sure that you do not cover up any of the windows that are built into the lens. At the top, you're going to have your clear spaces for your proximity sensor. You also have a round hole there for your front-facing camera. You want to make sure you don't go over any of these windows with the adhesive. That can cause you some problems. It's going to be real noticeable if you go over the camera, but if you go over the proximity sensor windows, your phone is not going to shut the screen off when you make a call, so you end up touching it with your cheek and hanging up on people or dialing different numbers. Now, you can see I'm pointing out those two windows. And then we'll just go ahead and feed the cables through the bottom here. Make sure those don't get snagged. And I like to install it from the bottom because we want to make sure, most importantly, that the cables are routed properly. And then you can kind of start pushing this down onto the adhesive. Just work your way around the edges. Obviously, do not put any pressure on the LCD itself. And here you can see the hooks in the frame that actually latch into the housing of the phone when we put it together. And a little bit of adhesive on the back of these cables will allow them to stick down into the same place where the old ones were removed from. And now the tricky part. We have two different cables facing opposite directions that we need to plug back into the phone. This will take some manipulation. I'm going to try to keep this in the camera shot so you can see how those plug in. You cover them up, put the tape on top, hopefully to hold them in place. Again, this bottom thick one here, it's just really awkward and really tricky to plug it in. It will take some practice and maneuvering, but you want to make sure that's inserted all the way into the connector, otherwise your LCD is not going to be operating. So once you get that pushed in all the way, you'll want to shut that little latch down, and this must be absolutely straight. If it's crooked at all, you're not going to have functionality of the LCD. So again, you'll have to work with this a while. If you put it back together and you can't see the screen, this is most likely the reason why this cable likes to slip out of position. So whatever it takes to hold it in place is what you need to do. And then we can put this back together, and it does kind of, you'll see how the little hooks inside latch in. Slide it down, and it should lock into position. And we're just going to go ahead and hit the power button, make sure the LCD is functioning. And if everything looks good from here, we can go ahead and put our T5 screws back in the bottom of the phone. And then, of course, you can replace your SD card and your LTE card, and you are good to go. If you found the video helpful, hit the like button, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Twitter or Facebook. Post your questions in the comment section below or visit gocellphonerepair.com/forum. Thanks for watching.